Take a look at what happened.
I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold on, your head is bloody.
So we gotta move to the car.
Let me get my shoes.
Watch out.
I do think the people who believe this to be a setup event and that nobody was killed, there was no bullets, I think that's one of the most outlandish theories, just based on my observation. I've been following it fairly closely since Saturday night. And the interviews of the people, for example, the medical doctor that was covered in blood that helped the man that was shot in the head. For me, and I'm very familiar with the conspiracies, I'm very familiar with the crisis actors. I don't get that vibes from the people that were doing interviews right after it happened.
I thought the same thing when I saw the interviews of the people afterwards. I was very wary of whether they were going to give hallmarks of being crisis actors like we usually see in these events. I mean, we're highly aware of this stuff. I'm aware of the squib thing. I'm aware of, you know, the all the possibilities with all this stuff. I think that the truth of this is probably somewhere in the middle of all those things. But I also think that I do think that he was shot at. I think the people were real. I have doubts about other particular ones that I probably shouldn't say those particular ones because
what
of
do you mean?
The toss. Well, for instance, like Harvest Festival.
Bro, share. This is
like
you're in a safe place, BLA. You're in a safe space.
Well, the Harvest Festival, you know, and a lot of the interviews and what people say it was, I'm not sure about whether that's true. I mean, because even back at the time in like 2017 or whatever it was, when people were you have a narrative that somebody is narrating while we're watching the videos, but you don't see it on the video. And I'm still not sure about what happened there. I mean, I think it definitely was not what they say it was. I think this one probably was. I think that you know, immediately people were like, "Oh no, that's an air gun."
Yeah, BB. It was fake. It was.
And I hear all that.
Blood in the ear.
And I hear all that, and I think that's certainly a possibility you can throw into it. I don't think it's the case with this one, and also, if he was shot at, and whether, you know, because lefties also are saying, like, you know, he wasn't shot with the bullet, it was fragments from the glass, you know, from the glass or whatever. But to me, it's the same. If you get shot at and the bullets from the glass get shot into your face, then you've been shot in the face.
Right.
And so as far as I can tell,
we can all be skeptical. I'm okay with skepticism. I'm just saying what I think based on what I've seen. But according to the doctor's public statement, Trump's, and then people around him, there was a piercing of his ear with a bullet. Now, I know some people are going to say that didn't happen.
It's a false flag.
False flag.
Yeah, false flag.
Somebody died and 2 people injured. What do you think about that?
False flag.
False flag.
I thought it was magnificently staged. It was professionally done. It almost looked real.
Wait. Staged by who?
Oh, by Mr. Trump, of course.
I think this whole thing is staged.
That's fine. I'm just saying that's what is the narrative. That's what multiple people have said that they've confirmed. Dana White did an interview today on the Pat McAfee show. He's in Italy. He said he talked to Trump 30 minutes after he got out of the hospital, and said that there was a piece of his ear missing from where it got shot. So again, believe what you want, believe what you guys want. That's fine. We're just here to share our perspective on everything. Well, that highlights the strange fact. I mean, the social media accounts were washed from the internet immediately, and people are still trying to find. They did find that he spent over $1,500 on an OnlyFans girl, and he used his real name on the app. So they did find that, but like Discord deleted his account immediately upon his name being released. And so it's been difficult for people to find his social media print
Yeah.
which is very strange. I do want to address something because this is one of the ones that I saw many people that I am friends with, not many, but a few, and people that I like and trust. But the narrative about the bracelet on the sniper's wrist, oh my God, he's Jewish. Look at there was no red bracelet. Like they wanted to do the Kabbalah bracelet, like Tucker, everybody's in on it. And I've done streams with a Tucker where he had a rubber band on his wrist, and I was still getting people in the chat saying, look, he's wearing his Kabbalah bracelet. And I'm not saying there aren't people that wear an identifier of, like Maidan is noted for wearing one very frequently. But the narrative about the sniper having a Kabbalah bracelet, well, then people zoomed in on it. Wasn't that at all. He had like one of those like rope type bracelets that guys have, and then it was a rubber band.
Well, look, I got a bracelet from a play I went to last night, Dr. Faustus, but really it was where I met up with my handler at local, 33. So,
right. So that's where, it's like, I'm all for the conspiracies and I love the skepticism and people doing the investigation. I mean, that was one of the things with this broke. Without X, I mean, we would be totally siloed and the authority would be given to the mainstream media. Where so many people are doing, and that's where obviously on X too, a lot of different theories. There's 3 different names that have been mentioned as the shooter. And right after it happened, it was like this chubby Hispanic guy that was apparently part of Antifa. And maybe there's multiple shooters. We still don't know for sure. What I do know and what I feel in my heart, and we're going to watch some videos and just bring everybody up to speed on all the facts before we bring people on. I do think that somebody had to have known that it was going to happen ahead of time. It just doesn't make sense to me with the local police there and the Secret Service. And if what is being reported, as I said, an hour before we came live, that a police officer spotted him on the roof 30 minutes before shots were fired, that is unfathomable that somebody wasn't aiding and abetting it. And it doesn't mean all the Secret Service or all the police were in on it. It just takes a few of the higher ups to say, oh, don't shoot, stand down. It's okay. Don't pursue that, and just move people into a sort of different directions. But my personal take so far is that I do think it was a coordinated hit. And it could just be that people, again, whether it be the intelligence agents or the deep state, was knowledgeable, but that this guy was going to act that day. At best, as we said, it's just total incompetence. But I lean more towards the side that there was some complicity in the event.
Well, I think it's worth looking at. One of the things I sent you beforehand was it's worth looking back into, especially the thing that always comes to mind with this is the speech by Mr. X in the Oliver Stone movie. JFK, because it's Fletcher Prouty. It's based on Fletcher Prouty. And one of the things he says in this, because it's relevant to this, first of all, when he's talking about Kennedy, because it's the same sort of thing. He says, I never realized Kennedy was so dangerous to the establishment. Is that why? Well, what's the real question? That's the real question, isn't it? Why? The how and the who is just scenery for the public. Oswald, Ruby, Cuba, Mafia keeps them guessing like some kind of parlor game, prevents them from asking the most important question, why? Why was he killed? Who benefited? Who has the power to cover it up? Who?
I never realized Kennedy was so dangerous to the establishment. Is that why?
Well, that's a real question, isn't it? Why? The how and the who is just scenery for the public. Oswald, Ruby, Cuba, the Mafia keeps them guessing like some kind of parlor game, prevents them from asking the most important question, why? Why was Kennedy killed? Who benefited? Who has the power to cover it up? Who?
He says the organizing principle for any society is for war. And I think that that's obviously, in terms of the why, the part of this whole thing is obviously Trump has, I'm just looking at this. I don't care about, I'm not voting, any of that stuff. But what I'm saying is that part of this is that Trump's stance on war, which is, yes, I know that he got the guy in Iran. But his stance on war and ending the Obama drone strikes and all that stuff is obviously one sort of threat to the establishment. Now, I know that there's warp speed and all that, which is a lot more was accomplished under Trump for the establishment, probably than ever. I mean, the whole warp speed was part of this. But I think that one of the things about, about Trump's, what he says is, in terms of ending the war in Ukraine and the stuff in the Middle East, is obviously a threat to the interests of MIC. And then what he says here, he says everything is cellularized. No one has said he must die. That's not on paper. Nothing's on paper. There's no one to blame. It's as old. He says a military firing squad, 5 bullets, no blank. No one's guilty. Because everyone in the power structure who knows anything has plausible deniability. There's no compromising connections except at the most secret point. And then this part, he says, he's talking about the assassination and how it came from, they knew that de Gaulle had been assassinated. They knew that JFK was on the list, but he says, we never would have allowed all these wide open, empty windows overlooking Dealey. Never. We would have had our own snipers covering the area. The moment a window went up, they'd have been on the radio. They would have been watching the crowds, packages, rolled up newspapers, a coat over an arm. Never would have let a man open an umbrella along the way. Never would have allowed that limousine to slow down to 10 miles per hour. Never would have allowed all this stuff. And that's interesting because Mr. X and that Fletcher Prouty is part of the presidential security cadre. And so I know that's a movie, but it's interesting for looking at this because it's so simplistic. There's a damn rooftop. There's a rooftop, 450 yards
and
away.
It's white.
It's
not
wide
even like
open. It's wide open on a sunny day, and there are snipers overlooking the crowd, and he's right there. So I don't think that's obviously not incompetence. There's another whole side.
Something nefarious is at work.
It's something nefarious, and obviously that's been the end point. They want him gone.
And Jay, what's your thoughts on everything?
I think you guys are spot on in terms of what you're theorizing, the analysis that it doesn't require like a secret, programmed assassin. You can kind of nudge people to do this who are already kind of nutty or that have been profiled that have this kind of a persona. And my guess would be that's probably what happened. And it is still MK Ultra because like all of these leftoids, these NPC people, like they've been brainwashed by MK Ultra. They have been. The whole culture is MK Ultra culture, so they're actually the victims of that. And I just talked to literally. I'm not bragging, but I talked to the most famous living assassin hitman about 10 minutes ago. We had a really fascinating conversation, Sammy the Bull, and and he said, "Listen, I know this kind of thing. I'm the hitman. This was a hit, 100%. This was a hit." So
I believe
Sammy the Bull says it was a hit.
Jay, because I know you were streaming earlier, but I think the news broke about the fact that he was identified by a police officer on the roof 30 minutes before shots were fired.
Yeah, I saw
that just seems unexplainable.
Well, it makes sense that there was prior knowledge, right? And again, there's so many.
Go ahead.
No, there's so many things that line up with the JFK event, even elements that line up with the assassination attempt on Reagan. There's a lot of parallels there too. And similar situation too in the 2014 Maidan coup where they used a sniper to kick off that scenario as well. So there's a lot of precedents for this in history. And if it's 30 minutes, I mean, if you watch the video, there's a 2-minute delay between when apparently or allegedly, right, the Secret Service is first notified and for the actual shots. So the notification, and there's 2 whole minutes of Trump talking, and then the shots happen.
Right.
But if there's a whole 30-minute, that's even crazier.
Yeah. Well, and that was local police. Again, according to what I saw on X, those were, again, news sources it was breaking news right before we started live. But from also what I saw is that the Secret Service sniper had him in the scope 3 minutes before shots were fired.
Correct. Did you see the claim of a guy saying there was somebody claiming to be that guy? I don't know if that's true. It's allegedly. And he was saying that he had to get approval from a higher up in his earpiece before he could shoot. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
I don't know if that's true, but
welcome our sister Rachel Wilson. What's your thoughts on everything? Share your insight.
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that if only the Secret Service were half the sausage fest that this panel is, we might not have had such a problem.
Yeah,
that's the first thing.
Do better than the fat heifer that was running around loose.
Yeah.
Did you guys not realize that FUPA or GUNT could actually be a protective a shield against incoming bullets. Nobody's even thinking.
Jay,
about
I
that.
heard you say earlier, bullets don't bounce off of it, bud. They don't bounce off.
Fupa force defending the nation. It's so that's so ridiculous. And I was like, this is it. This is the only thing I ever need. If anybody ever gives me any shit ever again for saying maybe we shouldn't, tell women they can do every single thing men can do, I'm just going to point at this. I'm just going to point at it and be like, shut up. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
So there's that.
I'm wondering, like, what was her breathing like? What was her heart rate afterwards? Like she ran like 10 feet. Like, did she have to pass out? Like,
well, if you're gonna have a meat shield, you want a sizable one, right? So,
yeah, guys, stop! I forgot my inhaler.
Well, I've been given a lot of crap in the past because I've gone on some of these podcasts and said that, I used to teach concealed carry and basic pistol classes with Andrew and with my dad. And so I generally worked mostly with the women. And I would say, like, you guys don't have to ever worry about women taking over anything just because they have guns, because I'd say a good 2/3 of the women that I've taught do not have the hand strength to load the magazines or operate the action on a semi-automatic pistol. Most of them, I have to tell them, for you to have a reliable concealed carry, gun, you're going to need to get a revolver. You're going to need to get something you can reliably operate, because like we're in the field just practicing and they can't even, just the spring tension on the magazine is too hard for them to load.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like super common. So the fact that people would ever imagine, I'm sure you've seen the videos of this lady, the woman who was in charge and was formerly at Pepsi doing something at Pepsi.
Yeah.
She
Cheadle.
made a video. Yeah, she made a video talking about how proud she was of all the women she hired and that they were going to double down on the DEI hires in the Secret Service, and that she couldn't wait for the day where she didn't even have to differentiate between male and female agents.
Right.
All
30%,
this nonsense.
Yeah, 30% women by 2030 is the goal of the Secret Service under Kim Cheadle. I was curious, Jay and Rachel, I'm sure you guys have been seeing on how many people think that it was totally staged. And I was just curious what your guys' thoughts on that.
Well, isn't it funny that you're not supposed to talk about that? And if you're Lord Voldemort, you need to pay $1 billion for talking about that.
Right.
Now, though, no, it's all cool. It's kosher. You can talk about it.
Right. Well, even people here in the chat I know we have multiple people in the chat that are not convinced that there was a real bullet, that it was a real firing, that this was a staged event. I mean, I find that, and I saw your response, Rachel, that at least for me looking at the interviews, I didn't see crisis actors. I didn't see the response that I would typically see at a false flag event of some sort. So I believe it was legitimate. I believe that Trump escaped with his life. And I was just curious what your guys' thoughts with, people here in our community. There's so many people that are so skeptical, and rightfully so, of everything in the media, that they think this was entirely planned by Trump.
Well, something I learned early on, because I've been, paying attention and noticing for, 17, 18 years now, is that anytime you think that everything is fake and staged, you're going to be wrong. And every time you think nothing is fake and staged, you're also going to be wrong. Like, you have to be able to notice patterns and establish ways of kind of discerning and deciphering the information you're looking at, which gets more difficult, as the technology advances and we have more disinfo stuff and we have more AI and we have better technology to fake things. I understand why people are skeptical, but number one, I always say wait, because nobody ever knows what the hell is going on within those first couple that you want to be paying attention, but you want to wait to I know exactly what happened here, because no, you don't. Probably
exactly
even right. And even people who, if there's a fake flag or something, even people who know about it usually don't know everything. This stuff is compartmentalized. There's nobody who just knows all the pieces of the info, even if they're part of it. So to think that you as an observer are going to have everything figured out, no, that's silly. And you're just going to discredit yourself. So you want to pay attention. You want to watch things. But this event is probably going to be like most of the other events that we talk about, where 20 years from now, new information will come out, or different witnesses will say things, or you know what I mean? This is the kind of thing that we're gonna be waiting a long time to gather all the info. That's what I think.
Welcome, Father Deacon. How are you?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Oh man, yeah, so much stuff. We've talked about this before too, and a lot of it's speculation. And I'm brushing up, reading my Dave McGowan book, Program to Kill. Like, just kind of going back through a lot of stuff, and like maybe even perhaps some political philosophy too. Just when events like this happen, I think can give us some good insights into, again, at the end of the day, we're all kind of making speculations, but we certainly can kind of see patterns and get kind of a good kind of overview and look in anticipation of what's going to go on or what possibly could. I think that's kind of probably the best approach.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
There it is.
Yep. I actually wrote that book. That's another thing I created. I created Pascal's Wager, Jay Dyer,
wow,
and elections. Oh, in South America. That's right. Those are the name 4 things that FDA created.
So we'll ask you. This is a question that we've kind of bounced around. 1, do you think the assassination attempt was real? 2, do you think this will have a benefit to Trump's reelection? 3, do you think things are going to get crazier before the election and that they'll try to take Trump out?
I think it was real. I like what you had said earlier about that. I mean, real in the sense that there weren't like crisis actors and stuff like that. That's what you mean,
right.
Correct?
Right.
Not that it might not have been obviously planned or something like that. So yeah, I think you intuitively, it doesn't have the marks that other kind of staged events did. So I think it's more reasonable to conclude that, yeah, I think they actually tried to assassinate him. I'm still not clear who the actual shooter is.
Agreed.
We've got 2 stories on that's weird itself. Clearly there was at least one shooter. What if it would be weird if it was like those were actually the 2 shooters? There was like more than one that we.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I keep that as a possibility.
There are multiple shots. Yeah, I mean, at this point, all we have is like you hear stuff. Like nobody's done any kind of like ballistics analysis or anything like that, so we have no idea how many other people were in on it. But I mean, the one guy that they have, and I don't know. Obviously, he's just a patsy or something like that. But it's like it checks all the check marks, right? The boxes. Lonely kid.
His parents are psychologists.
His parents are psychologists. He's in SSRIs, stuff like that. So again, I try to.
He's in a dang BlackRock ad. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about the BlackRock ad. So, I mean, look. Let's just lay out the what are the possible options? It is really the deep state that is doesn't want Trump and created an assassination, in which case they'll do it again. Because that really looked like, I mean, you can't fake that. That's basically what I saw. I'm like, you can't, he turned his head.
That was my thoughts, but multiple people here in the chat think that it was scripted and it was fake. But I agree with you.
It was just ketchup on his ear.
Yeah, that's right. It
was a Hollywood squib.
Yeah, you've got to be pretty far out there.
He had a dye pack in his hand.
Yes,
and he picked it up when he squatted down.
Yeah. The fact like 2 people died also. So it's like,
one person died, 2 were critically injured.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, there's one thing that I found that I was thinking about this the other day. Is there anything that's just so certain that somebody can't doubt it? I'm like, there can always be the guy that's like, oh, I don't, well, it could be this, right? There always can be the person out there that's like, well, how do you know it can't be? I mean, these are kind of unreasonable standards to apply to anything. So,
right.
I don't entertain that. Okay, so what's the other option? It's to create division. Like this is planned by both sides, perhaps.
Perhaps. I mean, well, did you see one of the things that leads credence to that, and I haven't mentioned it yet, is that Nikki Haley, upon Trump, so he was able to invite who he wanted to come to the RNC convention. 30 minutes before the shots were fired, Nikki Haley was somehow promoted to become a speaker at the RNC convention, which has led some people to speculate that even potentially the Republicans were in on this potential assassination, already setting the stage that Nikki Haley then was going to be at the convention when she wasn't supposed to be, because Trump specifically said he didn't want to invite her.
Didn't she just fly on one of the top dude, Adelson's private jet to Israel like last week?
Yeah. Well, and Trump, didn't he just take how many millions of dollars from the Adelsons?
Bingo.
Well, and keep in mind that I think BlackRock chose Haley as their candidate, right?
Right, which makes sense.
And also in regard to what FDA was saying about potentially more than one shooter, a lot of the JFK analysts and theorists think that there was more than, Oswald. There was other shooters, so there would be precedence for that. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if.
I wouldn't either.
Okay, so we got two options. What's a third option? Now, part of this too could be, I definitely think if I were a deep state intelligence agency or something like that, I imagine I would have several different kinds of plans and contingencies. So I think we should probably think along those lines. First is to just create chaos. I think the one thing that you always look at too, that they're probably working and planning on, is crisis reaction solution. So that's why I anticipate that there could be an assassination of Biden, who they already want to get rid of, and then blame it on Trump MAGA supporters, and then shut that down. So what are some other possibilities that we can let's just go with the kind of repeating patterns that they, what do we know, and the things that they could do or why they would be doing it.
Do you think it'll benefit, and how do you see the timeline moving to, what is it, November 5th is the election?
If that was the only things going on, sure. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
That if it was as that simple, that it was just crazy leftists, woke, Antifa, BLM dudes doing this, yeah. But that's kind of a simplistic, that they didn't have, that let's say even like the other side or the deep state didn't have other plans too, and the workings, which they do.
Yeah, they're going to poison his diet.
Ceteris paribus, yeah, like it would. But this is just the beginning. Like, obviously, this isn't just an isolated incident. I was talking to my mom, I think yesterday when I was driving down to church, and she was saying, well, this is all just normal. There's been assassination attempts all throughout history. And I was saying, but it's not quite normal. Because why? Once you put it in the kind of context of what's been going on in the last 4 years, from rigged elections to, false flags and staged kind of January 6th coups and COVID and all the stuff that's been going on, and with the media and stuff like that. I'm like, it's unprecedented. Like, yeah, okay, assassination attempts, but you always have to put an event within the kind of historical context of the time of what's going on. And it isn't kind of normal. It's highly advanced 4D kind of geopolitics.
I agree, Father Deacon. It is unprecedented. I mean, the only time that sort of compares with this, in my opinion, seems to be like the endless stream of assassinations and war in the 1960s. You know, I mean, we forget RFK was assassinated. You know, they were covering it on public, on television in the hotel. With that, what we know about that, which seems obvious now about Sirhan and MK Ultra.